So I'm joined today with Dan McDevitt, Baltimore, Maryland real estate agent, as well as client of 1,000 calls a day. Dan, thanks for joining me today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, we are excited to learn all about what he's doing. He has been a seasoned agent, 14 years in the business, focused strictly on the Baltimore, Maryland area and marketplace. Doesn't focus too much on Zillow leads and those type of online leads, but rather crushes with open houses as well as a plan for calling, his expireds, his FSBOs, and his other pieces that he really enjoys. So Dan, before we kind of dive into what you're doing, why don't you give us a little background on how you got started and what your why is?
Well, my why is absolutely my daughter. It's, my daughter and my family, trying to provide the best living that I can for them, without a doubt. I started in real estate 14 years ago. A majority of it for probably 8 or 10 years, I got involved with doing short sales, and I've done a couple hundred short sales. And for probably 7 or 8 years, it was mostly all my business. And I started doing short sales because I went through a divorce back in 2005 and ended up in foreclosure and bankruptcy and all of that as the real estate market collapsed. And I was going through a divorce at the same time. So then as the market, I honestly, I was getting really burnt out on short sales and the laws were changing. And then they really tightened up in Maryland. And you needed to, around 2013, 2014, you started to need to have attorneys involved, because before that I did everything. I used to do everything A to Z. I mean, I marketed the short sales, got them under contract, negotiated with the banks for the sellers. I did everything, but I was getting to a point, probably 2013, 2014, 2015, where I was considering quitting because I was just so burnt out. The whole short sale process and doing everything was burning me out. And then I slowed down for like 2 years, where I was almost doing minimal transactions for like 2 years. And I was just kind of doing other things. I have a couple other small businesses, and where I was like contemplating getting out of the business. And then I decided to, I ended up getting, I don't know what clicked in me, and I decided to kind of, hunker back down, probably 2016, and ended up getting an assistant to kind of leverage some of my time, and I realized one of the things that was burning me out were the things I hated doing, like paperwork, and couldn't
There's a
stand
funny
doing it.
quote that
Right.
says, if you don't have an assistant, you are one.
Yeah, and
So
that's the truth. And
leverage
that's,
definitely sounds like was an asset there.
yeah. So for like that 2 years where I probably, I don't know, maybe sold like 10 houses a year, um, where I was just kind of just drifting by and just kind of still had my fingers in it, but it was like, I knew I liked doing it, but I was trying to figure it out and figure out why I was getting to the point where I was hating real estate. And, so I decided to kind of make that leap. The opportunity came almost by accident. An assistant, where another agent said, "Hey, were you looking for one? She's a great assistant. She's experienced, but the agent she's working with moved across town. She doesn't want to go across town." And I was like, let me give this a shot. And I went ahead and hired her. We talked, and I hired her, and then I kind of started, okay, well, now I gotta start pushing my business back up, and bringing my business back up, because now I'm going to have the salary I have to pay. And then
Ooh,
as
some accountability.
yeah, it put a gun to my head. And so I started to kind of start prospecting again and going, oh, well, I got to, you're not starting from cold, because I had 10 years in the business. And one thing I was good about, and had been good about for a long time, was keeping a database. So it was like, well, I got to start pushing things back up. And I had went from this, where I was doing so many short sales, and then I started turning them down because I didn't want to deal with them. I started being, very, and I wasn't even I was so burnt that I wasn't even being smart about it. And I wasn't even like taking deals and referring them off and getting a referral fee. I would just say, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. So it was really stupid on my part. And, so I started like started prospecting again. And then as I started kind of finding a groove with her, and realizing like, okay, well, this is nice, not having to do contracts and type stuff up and type up offers. And she was licensed, so she could do more than just an assistant. She was, she knew how to do a lot of stuff. I was like, wow, this is actually, it's a lot more refreshing, that, and then I just kind of started getting momentum again, started slowly getting momentum again, as I kind of started, getting back into it. And then I realized too, like niches, what is it? Niches or riches are in the niches. I realized I had a, because going through everything that I went through, I had a way better understanding than probably 99% of agents of short sales.
Well, you're
So,
speaking from experience now,
right,
not a
right.
not a shoulda,
Yeah.
coulda,
Yeah.
woulda
Yeah.
type conversation.
Yeah, so I started going, and then and then in that process, I ended up stumbling upon a really, really good real estate attorney, because, like I said, Maryland became an attorney state where you can't negotiate it yourself anymore. So even if I had wanted to take on that chaos, I couldn't. I had to get an attorney involved. So I stumbled upon him. So between Ann, my assistant, and then Steve, the attorney that was handling all the paperwork and deal, that all I had to do was get the listings and, deal with the other agents when the offers were showing, and then the negotiations were being taken care of by an attorney. I started, picking that back up. And then, I just wanted to, I was used to you calling and talking to people. So I started dipping into the FISBOs and expireds, and I got a dialer. And it's just, that's a time consuming, but it's all, that's the thing. Obviously people, um most agents, it's, you realize that fear of the phone and those things that scare people away from it. Because me nowadays, now if I don't, I try like 3 to 4 hours a day is what I try to have blocked off between morning and night to make calls myself, along with 1,000 calls a day making calls. If I don't get told to F off like 2 to 3 times a day, or have something nasty yelled at me, then I didn't make enough calls.
You didn't
That's
do
kind
enough.
of, yeah, and I didn't do enough. Like, I mean, that's kind of how I do it. Like, no one's really told me off today or slammed on the phone or yelled at me. So I don't think I've made enough calls.
Now, give me
But
a little bit of insight for the viewers that are watching. Give me insight on your team. So we know that you have an assistant, so
right
that's
now,
part of
yeah.
your help. Who else is on your team? Who else are you doing these deals with?
So my team consists of, my team right now, and I'm happy. I'm not a person that wants to be like a big mega team. I know some agents, and they want to be a big mega team and have 30 or 40 agents. I have an assistant. I have a full-time assistant. I have a transaction coordinator that is not with me full-time, with the company I'm with, Cummings and Company Realtors, which is one of, privately, I mean, depending on where people are watching, but in Maryland, we're the fastest growing privately owned brokerage, Dave Cummings. So we have a transaction coordinating company that works with Cummings and Company. So I don't have her full time, but it's, basically per deal, and any of the Cummings agents can utilize it. So I have a transaction coordinator for once the deals go under contract, and I pay them per deal. And, so from contract to close. And then I have a full-time assistant and 2 buyers agents. So really it's essentially, 4 people on the team,
4 people. And
basically.
so
Yeah.
as you kind of diversified your portfolio of going from the short sales to now FISBOs and probates, you're super successful with open houses. You're super
Mhm.
successful with,
Yeah.
give us something in that open house, that it's not
So
a lot of people's strong point.
yeah, so it is. So and there's actually a great, if I don't mind giving another guy a plug, Josh Smith. Josh Smith is a real estate coach, and he's like probably like number 1 or number 2 agent in Arizona. So a couple years ago when I started, again, you get that gun to your head once, so like 3 years ago, I started like, oh my God, I'm taking on this salary, for this agent or for this assistant full time. And I made this commitment. So I was at a point where I was looking at my business, and this is where, you know, all people do and I realized a lot of people do this, like hurry up and wait. Well, not yet. So this assistant stumbled on, and it was really was a perfect timing. But I'm looking at my business at the time, going, I don't have enough business, you know, to I don't have enough business to take on this, you know, let's say $30,000-$40,000 a year salary, right? But and I had just started, was like started with this coach, and Josh actually said something that made it was like, you know, like made the light bulb go off. It was like, you're right. And he was like, that's the problem that holds people from taking that step, is they think about, well, you're thinking about it wrong. You're sitting here thinking, well, I don't have this 30 or $40,000 years in your bank account. Well, you don't need that, because you're paying them weekly. You know what I mean? You only need this much
You
now,
need this
and you
much, you need to close one deal. Have you
right,
closed
right,
two deals?
exactly. And it was like that, and it was kind of like, oh, you're right. You know what I mean? But that's still scary. Going, okay, well, so I was like, all right, well, now I got to start producing again. And one of the big things he teaches is mega open houses, because one thing, and it's, you know, become where so many people, and especially older people that have been around, like open houses don't work. But one thing that's different, he had this philosophy back then a couple years ago. One thing that's different, that's really changed, and he is, people shop differently now. You know, like, because the Redfin and Zillow and Realtor.com have their open house apps, and people just starting to look can just click on an app on a Thursday or Friday and say, okay, well, what open houses are in this price range in this zip code, and I can go look at them. There's a lot of people that go around, you know, single and couples, that are looking at open houses that are just on that verge of of actually looking for, they haven't locked into an agent, but they're just in that browsing, because technology, you know, is right here. It's right at
Well,
their
so do you
fingertips.
feel like
Yeah.
the education before the actual meeting, you know, HubSpot preaches this too, that now that the customer's life cycle has kind of changed, you're getting very, very educated consumers on what they're looking for. So you're not
Yeah.
coming in blindly anymore. They are like, this is what we're looking for.
Right,
Mhm.
absolutely, but it's still a connection. It's still a connection-based business, and making them feel, you know, making that connection. How do you make the connection? You know, you make, you know, and open houses, and Josh talks about open houses as storefronts, as like, you know, a storefront. It's just, you have a storefront, you open up a storefront business, and you're letting customers are coming in, you're attracting people that at least have an interest in that type of store. And
What is one piece of the open house that you feel like crushes it every time?
So, well, it's a combination, I think, of a couple, and I always feel like it's something. Number one, it's real simple. I have a simple, pretty formula of doing it, but I think it's all these little pieces. It's like 5 or 6 little pieces add up. Number one, I drop the open house on a Tuesday. I try to get it drop on like a Tuesday morning, for an open house on like a Saturday or Sunday. And reason being, because it takes like a day or two to really get through the MLS, and get on Zillow and all those sites. But once when it pops up by like Wednesday or Thursday, that's when most people are looking. Most people are looking on like Thursday for open houses to hit on the weekend.
That makes sense.
So I drop it on a Tuesday, so it pops up as it'll, and most of the websites it'll show as new listing, so it'll be like flagged for a new listing and flagged for an open house. So when it pops up on Redfin and all those sites, it's, you know, for people casually looking, it's it really jumps out as something that's new to the market, and an open house this weekend, the first week that it's on the market. Then I take and I utilize listings to leads to create squeeze pages, for the listings, and I take those. So when I make a little squeeze page, and because listings to leads connects to my follow-up boss, which is my CRM. And then we take, and like Wednesday and Thursday, by Wednesday and Thursday, we take and we post, the squeeze pages in Facebook groups that are local. You know, for instance, like an area that I'm in, Middle River, Maryland, or Dundalk, Maryland, you can go and find into groups like Dundalk Yard Sale, Middle River Yard Sale, things like that, and I post them in those groups, for locally. And then what happens is, when people click on into that squeeze page for more information, then it captures their email address, and it connects it into my follow-up boss,
Dan,
right?
that's brilliant.
So,
That's
so
brilliant.
yeah, then I take those same squeeze pages and I run ads for like 3 days locally. I'll go like just basic. I
What's
mean,
your ad spend? Are you spending hundreds?
no, I probably spent about $100 on Facebook ads per open house.
Okay.
So I just do it within like a couple mile radius of the house. If not going to get in, I mean, there's a million, if people don't understand Facebook ads, it's pretty simple. But I usually go in and go like a 3 mile radius of the house, and send that out for like 3 or 4 days, run it for like 3 or 4 days. And then I make sure we get an open house sign immediately in the front yard that says open this Saturday, 12 to 2.
And
And I
now
got a couple of them.
are you at
So
every open house?
no, I don't even go to the open houses anymore. My two buyers agents do them because honestly, most Saturdays I'm doing listing appointments. Cause I pretty much got to where I don't show buyers properties. I haven't, all of 2019, I haven't showed one buyer a property. So the buyer leads go to, so my time is spent talking, I spend 4 hours a day on the phone. So it's either at a closing for one of my settlements, meeting, with listing appointments, or, in some cases, for sale by owners or expireds. They're not always the first time is a listing appointment. Sometimes you're meeting with them for the relationship. A lot of times, especially, everyone's different. Like for sale by owners are different. Um, so for sale by owners, because they don't like agents to begin with, that's why they're a for sale by owner. Um, a lot of times that takes at least one or two meetings, and sometimes it takes 90 days. And I actually have this Saturday at noon, I'm meeting with a for sale by owner, one that Jana originally contacted, and we're listing it at 12 noon.
So
I'm meeting
so
with her
now
on the
we
system.
kind of went into like the
Yeah,
prospecting. So
but I
now
met with him once. But so yeah, she had talked. We this is one, and I can pull it and give you the name of it, that I'm meeting with. But it was, we originally talked after she made the initial call. I met with them probably 3 weeks later, and they continued to try to be a for sale by owner for 3 months. So this is going back to the summer. This is going back about 4 months, and I just stayed in contact with them and sent them a thank you letter, and sent them I sent them
personal
personal,
touches.
yeah, personal touches. Sent them an additional follow-up card, and that's what they called me off of. Just like a touching base, hey, drop my card in it, just checking in, don't want to be a pest. And in my CRM, I can see when they open emails. So like that person, I could see they were opening the emails that I sent. So I didn't bother them with calls because I'm like, they're seeing my name, they're opening
They're
it,
reading it,
they're
they're
reading it,
engaging with it. They're
but
just not
yeah,
ready.
yeah,
No need to
yeah.
scare them off.
So that's it. My time is spent either on the phone, making calls, following up on, say, Jana's leads, or doing listing appointments, or dealing strictly with sellers. I deal with anything with my sellers and the listings. Everything with buyers are handled by my two buyers agents. And at first, that was something I had trouble letting go of. And then, like the beginning of the year, beginning of 2019, I was like, well, because you have people, of course, that are past clients that are selling and buying, and I had this anxiety, like, well, those buyers are going to want to work with me. But you just have the conversation, and hey, and I haven't had any problems. Probably had a half dozen people that this year that sold and bought, and they work with one of my buyers agents. The way that my two buyers agents, they're in different parts. One's like right near me, right in this area. The other one's about 40 minutes across town. So it kind of works out. So really, and some people divide up leads, and they alternate them back and
Spatially,
forth.
it works.
But yeah, but what I do is that's how I kind of divide them up with them. It's really based on where it's at, because I've been doing this. I used to live across town myself, so I still get leads. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's
But
how I
Dan, this
divide
sounds
them up.
like you're growing your business with ease.
Yeah, it is. It
Not
is. So yeah.
hard, easy.
And I tell you what, every open house we do it, as long as we do it that way. So now I'm not doing them all, but I do pay for the ads for them. And like their job is on the open house, they make sure by like, when I tell them, hey, this is an open house going to be like Jamie and Ron, I'll say, Jamie, this is going to be your open house this Saturday. You got to make sure you get the sign out there. because I got a couple of them, big signs, so they stick out. So that way, people driving by, open house this Saturday, 12 to 2. Hey, you got to get the sign in the yard Tuesday. We'll get it I'll run the ads, and then they set up and do everything. And then we probably I'm big on, each of my agent probably has about 25 tent fold directional signs. Cause I think you know what I mean? So
yep.
Run the Facebook ads, post in the groups, get it up 5 or 6 days early, get a sign in the front yard advertising the open house this Tuesday or this Saturday or this Sunday, and then make sure you get 15, 20 directional signs out. Get there at the open house 2 hours early, and get the directional signs out. Get a couple balloons on the post, and and you end up with 15, 20 people in the open house, and all you really need, every one of them, on like knock on wood, at least they're getting one solid lead. You know what I mean? And then the other big thing is, and this was something Josh taught too. Is I taught them to, and converting, it's helping them a lot. When they follow up and they get their information, I say, don't just follow up with a text or call or email, do a specific video. Thank you for coming to
Get
that
to know
person.
your face.
Like, hey,
start
John,
getting comfortable.
Yeah. Hey, John and Mary, thanks for coming to the open house, and send them that video text. Make it specific, make it at the house. I tell them the last thing you do, clean up the open house, and then go back any of your leads, make a specific little video for each one saying, hey, John or Mary, thanks for coming to the open house at 123 Main Street. I'll be in touch and follow up if it's
Dan, I feel like you have given us so many great tips.
So
the video message, the open house, you have 4 specific tactics to use. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this, and thank you for taking the time and actually going through this. You guys heard it here. Dan McDevitt out of Baltimore, Maryland, his open house strategy. Dan, thank you so much.
No problem.